The World Baseball Classic is coming and Japan wants all three Dodgers Japanese superstars. LA knows the danger though. One wrong move in March could wreck the team's chance at a three-peat.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Harry Ruiz. That's Travis Rodgers, and it's time for Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. On today's episode, the bullpen rumors keep heating up, this time with Raisel Iglesias. We're talking solutions for left field because somebody has to play it, and after last season, LA can't afford another miss. But first, the World Baseball Classic dilemma, risk versus reward. Heart versus health, and where the Dodgers actually stand behind this, Travis.
Well, I'm just excited that maybe one of the two of us will get to play left field. You never know how it's going to shake out. We're going to break it all down in today's episode of Locked On Dodgers, which is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase.
Travis, he's holding it down every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. with the Travis and DeMarco Show on the radio, 710 ESPN LA, or on your phone via the ESPN LA app. Me, I'm behind the mic for USC and the Raiders doing play-by-play in Spanish, but when I'm not calling touchdowns on weekends, I'm right here breaking down Dodger baseball with you. First time tuning in? Welcome to the squad. And to our everydayers, you're the real MVPs of Locked On Dodgers. The World Baseball Classic Crossroads. Honor versus thinking about the future with October. Let's jump into the story that's turning into a quiet tug of war behind the scenes. The Dodgers, Team Japan, and the 2026 World Baseball Classic. Because, Travis, it's not just three players. It's three superstars and three massive decisions that could impact the Dodgers season before it even starts. Shohei Ohtani, MVP. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, World Series MVP. Roki Sasaki, postseason savior out of the bullpen. And Japan wants all three, obviously. These are not just great players, they're icons in their home country. And Dodgers manager Dave Roberts, while respectful, made it pretty clear he's uneasy about sending him off to a high-intensity tournament right after two deep World Series runs and right before the start of the 2025-2026 season.
Yeah, look, I understand where everybody is coming from in this thing. I really do. I understand why all three of the Dodgers Japanese players would like to play in the World Baseball Classic. They're the defending champions, right? I think for a lot of us, the first time we ever got to see Yamamoto was a few years ago in the World Baseball Classic. It's like, who is that guy and when can we get him? Same thing for Roki Sasaki, who was really, I think he was 19 the last time we saw him pitch in that thing. And it was, oh my goodness, look at that guy too. We already knew who Shohei was, obviously, but it means a great deal to them. Understandably so. They love their country. They part of the reason they are as good as they are for the Dodgers is the way that they have been developed in Japan, the way that they went through the Japanese baseball system before coming here. So their affinity for wanting to represent their country makes a ton of sense to me. I also understand why the Dodgers are very, very hesitant to just jump in with both feet and say, yeah, go knock yourselves out. Dodgers are trying to win a third World Series in a row. Dodgers are trying to create some history. They're trying to deepen their dynasty. I think it already is one, but they're trying to make it more a longer, deeper dynasty. I think they will come to some sort of an agreement on how guys are going to be used because you can't say not to play. You cannot take that away from them, whether it is the, Team Samurai, the American team, Team Mexico, Canada, all of the Team Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, all of these teams that have a chance to go and win this tournament. They want their best guys to be a part of it. They're going to try to balance out between being healthy for the regular major league season and then trying to go win a tournament, because really it's the only part of the year you can put this tournament in where you can get a kind of quasi-competitive environment. I think the hitters are fine. I think that for the most part they're relatively safe. It's the pitchers that are question marks, but I understand it from both sides. I'd be shocked, Harry, absolutely shocked if not just Yamamoto, Ohtani, and Sasaki, but every single guy that would like to play for his native country doesn't. I just think that's kind of we see it in basketball, you see it in hockey, you see it in these, whenever there is the soccer, there are these international tournaments, guys leave their club teams to go play for their national teams.
Yeah, the big difference here is with a pitcher, you always thread the needle and as you try to be super careful with them. And right here with these three guys, I'm pretty sure if Team Japan told the Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani, he will only be batting, he won't be pitching, the Dodgers would be like, take him. There's no problem at all. But the moment where it starts to be like, okay, pitching, you know the process, Travis. You're a former college pitcher over with Santa Barbara, where it's like the Gauchos, you got to control that arm, man. You don't just go out there, pitch 9 innings and expect them to be ready in a couple of days. It's like you saw the ramp up process that the Dodgers had with Shohei Ohtani. And in spring training, it's pretty similar. You start off with an inning, you go up to 2, you go up to 3, and hope that by the time that opening day rolls around, your starting pitcher can give you 6 innings. Over here, it's the World Baseball Classic. It's competitive baseball. It's not just spring training where guys go out there and it's like, okay, let's hope to give the fans a decent show, but it's not about who wins and who loses. It's about just getting ready for the regular season. Right there, everybody's going to try to win. So it worries me where it's like Yamamoto, Sasaki, you know that their only position they would be playing is pitchers. And I understand why you hear from Dave Roberts in his voice, not a rant, not a demand, but he is signaling concern because there has to be caution in that situation.
Look, it's incredibly competitive. I think one of the great moments that we've seen in baseball over the last, I don't know how long, 4 or 5 years, was Team USA against the Japanese team in the championship game where Shohei Ohtani ends up striking out Mike Trout to win the title for Japan. It was an incredibly exciting moment. I think that was the first time that we'd seen Shohei in a really meaningful moment where he's hitting, he's pitching, he's running down to the bullpen to get ready to come in and close the game. It's like, holy, like we'd seen him in the American major leagues for a while, but he was on the Angels. We're like, okay, yeah, I mean, he's great, but let's, what is he going to do when all the chips are on the table? Well, now we know. And that was our first glimpse at him. They'll figure it out. I don't think that anybody's going to draw a line in the sand. I understand why everybody wants to go, and I understand why everybody wants to be as careful as possible. I think you're going to have the same conversation with Paul Skeens and Tarek Skubal with the Tigers and the Pirates about them sending their guys to go do this if, in fact, they go do it. I hope that they do. And again, this isn't like October baseball where you're going to see Yamamoto do what he did a few weeks ago. This is going to be you might get Yamamoto, but he's going to throw 2 innings. Like you were saying, it's going to be a simulated, maybe it's slightly more competitive than that because you're going to try to get some guys out as opposed to just get stretched out. But I think those guys are going to play and I think they should. And this is just, you cross your fingers and hope nothing. What was it, Edwin Diaz a few years ago who got hurt in this thing? And it was incredibly unfortunate. But, these guys are competitors. It's very hard for them to turn it off. And for just about everybody, they want to represent their country. Getting your country's flag on your uniform is a very, very big deal. And I think they take it very seriously.
I was literally about to bring it up. Edwin Diaz, it was a right knee injury. Yeah. And he's a closer. He's a pitcher. So you know that he's not running around. It happened during a post-game celebration for Team Puerto Rico. And it's not like football where it's a contact sport where you're like any moment an injury can happen. You're not expecting a closer to get a right knee injury that's going to keep him out of the year just in any moment during a game. It was literally during a celebration and anything can go wrong, but you can't approach every situation where it's like, oh, look what happened with Edwin Diaz. No, we can't send our players out there. And look, it's also baseball that needs the Shohei Ohtanis, the Yoshinobu Yamamotos, the Roki Sasakis in there, because this helps the game become even more and more popular across our borders.
Absolutely. This is when they introduced this, I don't know how long it's been now, maybe 15, 20 years ago. And I'm like, nobody's going to really kind of care. Nobody's, you can't just make something up out of thin air. Well, I was wrong. This has become a really fun tournament to watch. And what makes it such a fun tournament, in my opinion, Harry, is that it's one of the few tournaments that no one's sure who's going to win, right? Like there are a lot of teams that could win this. You could say, the Americans, the Japanese,
Dominican,
the Koreans, the Dominicans, the Venezuelans, the Puerto Ricans. That's 6 teams right there. The Cubans, like that's 7. There's a lot of teams that have a legitimate chance of winning this tournament. That's really rare, and that's what makes it so exciting. And then you get to see the vast majority of these guys come to the major leagues and compete again. I get it. Guys get hurt. They're athletes. Athletes get hurt. And if this was a situation where if you do exactly this in spring training, nobody gets hurt, then no one would ever get hurt. Guys get hurt in spring training. Guys get hurt in the first week of the season. It happens. It sucks. It's a real drag that guys go down like that, but you can't prevent it. It's a great event. Playing for your country is a great honor. So I hope they get to go do it. And my fingers and hairs and toes and triple, quadruple cross that everybody stays healthy.
And look, I'm Mexican-American. I lived in Mexico for 12 years. That's where I started my sports broadcasting career. When I was in Mexico, it's like I had a daily radio hit where I always included the performance of Mexican baseball players.
Sure.
So when the World Baseball Classic started in 2006, I was like, yo, this is awesome. We have a chance to compete against other teams. And look, I'll be real. We're always the underdogs, the Mexican national team in these type of scenarios. But at the same time, you could look at the U.S. and it's pretty much the same situation with the U.S. being underdogs against the Dominican, against Venezuela, against Japan. So it was cool. You brought up Shohei versus Mike Trout, how Team Japan was able to get the win over the U.S. in the final. In the semifinals, Mexico had Japan against the ropes in an unexpected fashion, and Randy Arozarena became a national treasure for Mexico. So it was like, all right, hey, it brings you storylines that you don't see during the regular season in Major League Baseball. And like you said, Yamamoto, Sasaki, they first came into the spotlight right there in the World Baseball Classic. Now, let's see who's the next Yamamoto, who's the next Sasaki, and we'll see if the Dodgers do allow these guys to go out there.
I will never forget Randy Arozarena making that catch up against the wall in left field. I'm like, does he have it? Did he catch it? Did it go over? And he's standing there with
swag.
Just amazing, and just a great moment for baseball. And anybody that likes baseball, anybody that can't get enough of it, like I know I can't and you can. And if you're listening to Locked On Dodgers, you're probably one of those people as well. That let's have some fun baseball early in the year. And the World Baseball Classic is truly a classic, and especially after the last one we saw.
And look, just to be the devil's advocate before we go to our break, the Dodgers just can't afford to lose anyone, though. Not Ohtani's bat, not Yamamoto's arm, not Sasaki's electric upside. So there stands the dilemma. Can the Dodgers risk their stars in March when the goal is winning in October? And look, they don't want to be the villains. It's just conflicting priorities there.
I don't think they can tell him to not do it. I really don't. I mean, you're not telling Ohtani what to do. You're not telling Yamamoto what to do. Maybe they got a little squeeze of Sasaki if they really wanted to do it, but those other guys are going to do what they want. If those guys want to play for Team Samurai, they're going to go play.
Yeah, and it's national pride versus organizational protection. And until those meetings wrap up, this is officially the biggest plot line of the Dodgers offseason. And speaking of crucial decisions, the Dodgers have another one, and it's directly on the field. Next on Locked On Dodgers, which direction will they go in left field?
The NBA is back, and that means there is no better place to get in on all of that NBA action than FanDuel, which is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let's say, I don't know, you're getting home a little late. Let's say you do it on purpose and you miss the start of the game. You want to see how that thing's going to unfold. You want to see who's hot and is absolutely on fire. Well, FanDuel, they have live bets on everything from who's going to get that next bucket to who's going to make a big fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can take those live bets, you can combine your live bets into a same game parlay. And that, of course, means a shot at even bigger payouts, which means every game is even more exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. And right now, FanDuel, they're giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com and sign up. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You can check out our YouTube channel where you can subscribe for free. Smash that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Full episodes, hot takes, breaking Dodgers news, and more. If it drops, you're on it. That's how you become an everydayer here on Locked On Dodgers. Left field, fix it with cash, trades, or trust the kids. I mean, it was supposed to be patched up last year, that position, but it wasn't. Michael Conforto struggled from day one, and the Dodgers were left with a black hole in a lineup that, I mean, there were moments where it couldn't afford one because some players were underperforming at the top of the lineup, and you needed guys to step up. And Conforto, he was out there almost every single day, and he had a terrible 2025 season. So now LA is staring at a simple question with complicated answers. How do you solve left field in 2026?
Well, I think that the options that you laid out, Harry, are interesting. Look, the Dodgers are super aggressive, right? We've seen them get aggressive every single offseason, really almost under the entire Guggenheim group, right? Since Andrew Friedman's come over, they don't just kind of sit back and let things happen. They kind of make things happen. And I think that's what makes them so exciting. So a free agent is always an option when it comes to LA, because that's just kind of how they operate. And just because they spent a lot of money last year and they've won the World Series 2 years in a row doesn't mean they're going to sit back and say, hey, we're good, man. Let's just see what happens next. They're going to try to force the issue and see if they can't get that third in a row. I think in the back of their minds, though, they have to be thinking, we got to get a little younger. We have to start to develop some of these guys that have come through our own system. So we've got the next wave of guys, when this group of guys, whether the Mookies, the Freddies, the Muncies, the Will Smiths, that they start to age out a little bit. And you've got another crop of good young homegrown players, or at least some of the guys that fit that category there. So I think they'll probably go out and spend money because that's just how they typically do it. But I'm also intrigued about the possibility of whether it's Zaire Hope, whether it's Ward, whether it's any of these guys that certainly could at least potentially make an impact. Put them out there, see how they do in spring training. I know that spring training really doesn't mean all that much, but I'm really interested in seeing how they try to turn some of this stuff over. I think a lot of it depends on what you do with Kike Hernandez. I think a lot of this depends on whether you have to move Teoscar Hernandez back to left field, which I think you probably do. I just don't think you can go through another 162 game season with him in right field. So maybe you're actually looking for a right fielder if Teo is the answer in left field. So there's a lot of variations in this, but I would at least like to see the beginnings of the Dodgers attempting to get a little bit younger. Nothing crazy, but just start to the way that they introduced Pages, the way that they've started to introduce some of these younger guys. They tried it with Outman. It didn't work. They tried it with Pages. It seemed to work a little bit better. So maybe they continue that trend as well.
Let's break it down by options. Let's first off with free agency. Let's kick it off there. There are veteran options out there, but they come with the exact same risks as Conforto came with last year, with age, potentially inconsistency, and hoping lightning doesn't strike twice for the Dodgers, where it's like, damn, we thought we had it covered there, and now it's not. Or a superstar that costs too much, which Kyle Tucker has been mentioned a couple of times, and in that case, his natural position is right field. You could put him at right, put Teo at left, but free agency is option one. Option two, you make a trade, because you can dip into the farm, pull from that pitching depth that you have, that you noticed in 2025, where you have a surplus of starting pitchers. I can guarantee you there's teams that are like, hey, I want Emmett Sheehan on my squad. I'll send you one of my outfielders for Emmett Sheehan, and bam, you got that position covered right there. It could be the safest route if you want predictable production, but that the price tag is not going to stink. And we've seen Andrew Friedman be 100% comfortable sending your prospects out there to other teams. And then option three, look inward, look local. Look at Ryan Ward. He absolutely killed it with AAA Oklahoma City in a very hitter-friendly PCL. He hits left-handed, he hits her power, and he forced the Dodgers to put him on the 40-man roster to keep other teams from snatching him in the Rule 5 draft. So that also says a lot. So the question is he ready, or is this another case of timing, depth, and roster politics?
Well, let's kind of go in reverse order. Let's talk about Ward here for a second, because he's at an age where he's an older player who's never played in the major leagues. That scares me a little bit. The Dodgers, like you mentioned, Harry, really had a need in the outfield for a good chunk of the season. They never went to him. That's odd to me. That clearly you had a great deal of need at a position. You had a guy in the minor leagues who was thriving, and they played Alex Call, and they went out and did, a whole bunch of this, like, Okay. Now, if this was a younger player, maybe you just don't want to throw him in there. I get that, but this is a little bit of an older player, so that has a big question mark next to it. The trade option is an interesting one because, like you said, and we'll see how this works out. I don't know if the Dodgers are going to try to attempt to do what they did last year, this upcoming year, where you're going to use the Sheeans and the Robleskis, and River Ryan is back, and Gavin Stone, and those guys are all going to be back, and you basically mothball your big guns for late in the season. Well, you can only do that because you have all those other guys at the front. If you start sending those guys out, you're going to ask more of Glasnow and Snell and Yamamoto, Ohtani, etc. But if you were able to flip a Sheehan or Robleski or one of these guys and get a player like Steven Kwan, who's got a little bit of team control left, who isn't terribly expensive, who's a proven major league commodity, that's really interesting as well. But I'll go back to where we started with this. I think the question is, I think you actually need a right fielder, not a left fielder. I just can't imagine another season of Teoscar Hernandez playing right field. He's not very good out there. He can survive in left. He's not a great right fielder. There was a couple of different times you and I were talking about, like, man, you got to put Mookie Betts back out there. This is killing what's happening out there. So I think that if you could find a guy that could play either corner position, that makes your decision a little bit easier. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers are thinking more right than left when it comes to those outfield positions.
Yeah, and that could be the solution right there for the boys in blue. I don't feel that Teoscar Hernandez's defense is going to improve dramatically from one season to the other, so we definitely need to fix that situation out there. You mentioned his name, Alex Call. The Dodgers liked him enough to trade for him at the deadline, and his right-handed bat could pair perfectly with Ward in a platoon setup. Ward versus righties, Call versus lefties, a low-cost, high-upside, data-friendly solution. And we know that the Dodgers love doing their analytics and be like, okay, maybe that's the solution, which is it isn't sexy. It's not signing a star. It's not trading top prospects, but the Dodgers have turned platoons into weapons in the past. So that makes us ask the real question. Do the Dodgers trust a homegrown left fielder on a contending roster, or do they think this team needs one more veteran piece to take advantage of Shohei Ohtani still being the superstar that he is, of Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman starting to get in that back end of their contracts where it's like, hey, their era with the Dodgers is almost done. We got to strike right now instead with veterans, with stars, instead of trusting the young guns.
Yeah, the Call's an interesting one. I don't know if he hits enough to really love the idea of him playing, 80 games out there the way that he might. Maybe, I think the other option is you go into spring training with whatever it is you have, and then you fix it as you get closer to the deadline. That's always something that can happen as well. I think it's safe to say there will be somebody in that outfield. You're going to have Teo, you're going to have Pajes, and you're going to have somebody that may or may not hold that position down for the entire year. You're going to have some tryouts, whether official or unofficial, unless they make a deal for a player like Kwan. I'd be really surprised if they signed Tucker. I think the one way that Tucker maybe comes in is if the Dodgers go huge money short term, like a 2-year, 80 million sort of situation but again, if I'm Tucker, that's not what I'm looking for. I want long-term stability. I want long-term big dollars. So I think it's going to be one of those, okay, let's see how that works out. And maybe you got to fix it in real time.
And look, my take is that this decision will tell us exactly how aggressive the Dodgers plan to be in the 2026 offseason. And speaking of aggression, coming up on Locked On Dodgers, LA has their eyes on a familiar late inning weapon. The NFL season is here, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fellow fans cheering on your own team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's just flat out frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets, delivered on time, and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Game Time on my phone, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Don't forget to follow Locked On Dodgers not only on YouTube, but on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. You can find Travis on social media at Travis Rodgers on X and Instagram. Meanwhile, I'm at Harry Ruiz on X, at Harry_Ruiz on Instagram, and at Harry Ruiz_ on TikTok. Raisel Iglesias, smart bullpen buy or over 35 red flag? And let's close with the latest rumors swirling around the Dodgers relieving shopping list. Raisel Iglesias. Francis Romero from Baseball FR reported that the Dodgers are among the teams showing interest, and that was later confirmed by the LA Times. The important part, they like him, but on a shorter term deal. You look at his stats, Travis, he is as consistent as they come. A 2.9 career ERA across 11 seasons. It's crazy to say that. I remember him being one of the young guys out there. Over 250 saves and nearly 900 strikeouts, and he's done it all. Closer, fireman, multi-inning guy, stabilizer. So even at age 35, he posted a 3.21 ERA over 70 games with the Braves. So not elite, but still very good. The 2 years before that, he was dominant in Atlanta.
I think you said it really well. I think he's a good pitcher. I don't know if he is the answer to all of your bullpen problems the way that the Dodgers had them towards the end of last season, but he's a very good pitcher. I can't help but wonder, though, Harry, if the Dodgers didn't get they flew a little too close to the sun with relief pitchers last year, and they aren't a little gun shy about doing it again. Every time the topic of a reliever comes up, I'm going to say what I'm going to say until it's just flat out not possible anymore. I still think Tanner Scott is the answer in the ninth inning. I think they got to try to figure that out. That he has virtually no trade value right now. You are. I hate this phrase, but I don't know how else to say it. You're stuck with him. You're paying him a lot of money, and he's good. He had a terrible season. Relief pitchers sometimes have really bad seasons, and they bounce back the next year, and they're very, very good again. I think that their first option is to get Scott figured out. Now, if you could have a player like Iglesias there who could kind of support him in the event that he, is still trying to figure it out, that's great. But if I were Andrew Friedman, if I were the Dodgers, I would be a little reluctant going into the bullpen market again. And we saw it at the deadline last year. He being Friedman, they're really careful at that point. They're usually okay with what they had, and we saw him go out and get Brock Stewart, and they barely even pitched for the team. I wouldn't be surprised if they did something similar again, just simply because they got burned in last offseason.
And look, I don't want to sound like a douchebag, so I apologize to these guys, but Tanner Scott, Blake Trinan, they've proved in the past that they're really good relievers in the past. Yeah. What have you done for me lately? In 2025, both of them were below average. They were very bad compared to what we are used to seeing. So are you willing to risk in 2026 that they can return a form, or do you just prefer having somebody back there where it's like, okay, I understand that you want to be like, hey, I got a lot invested in these guys. I want them to go back to form. What if they can't? You got to have somebody ready to come in and be able to take over that spot. And Iglesias could be that guy, because the Dodgers love relievers who miss bats, don't walk, have playoff temperament, and won't demand 4 years of contract risks. And that seems to be the case with Iglesias checking off each box. So I feel that it's a low risk kind of risk that the Dodgers could take right here with this guy.
Yeah, if they got him at a deal that makes sense for the team, I don't think that prevents you from doing it. But Trinan, I think, is an interesting one. I think he's probably real close to the end of the line, if not already past the end of the line. I think the Dodgers, maxed out the Blake Trinan time. I know they got 1 year left there, but I don't know how much he's going to be a part of what they're doing in 2026. The Tanner Scott thing, and again, I know he had a terrible year. I'm not saying he did, but he's not an older player. He wasn't unhealthy. This is just something that he's got to get figured out. And I've seen it happen before with other relievers where 1 year you're great, the next year you're terrible, the third year you're great again. So I'm still, and the last part of it is, even with those two guys struggling, even with Kirby Yates struggling, the Dodgers still won the World Series. It was not a fatal flaw. It was something that they were able to maneuver through. Now, it got dicey at times. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not a big deal, but what I'm saying is they are not the sort of team that says, okay, here's a problem. We got to fix that problem. They're like, hold on a second. What was let's run it back again. Let's see what happens. We were able to cover some of these issues. The deadline is always a place where you can find relief pitching if you have to do it. And if they don't want to get in the business of a mid-30s relief pitcher like Iglesias, I would understand it.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at Tanner Scott and all his blown saves in 2025. If he doesn't blow half of those saves, the Dodgers don't have to play in the wild card round. The Dodgers are playing at home in Game 7 of the World Series instead of playing in Toronto. So I feel like, okay, we need to be able to get predictability from a bullpen that could use it after a very shaky 2025. I know that it's hard, but even with Kenley Jansen, we had moments where it's like, oh God, it's going to get dicey here.
Jansen's going to the Hall of Fame, right? Like it's really hard to have a consistent. It's almost impossible. That's why these guys are in the bullpen to begin with, is that they aren't consistent. That's what makes it so volatile, is that they're just up and down all over the place. We'll see. I mean, I think the only guy that you can say for sure that's going to be a really consistent performer for the Dodgers next year on that bullpen is Alex Vesia. That he's the one guy that just kind of gives you that performance that's pretty good. It's never elite level production, but it's almost never below average level production. It's always very, very solid. Everybody else is a close your eyes and hope they have a good night situation.
And even him at the end of the season, he struggled a bit. He went on the IL and he came back. So I trust Alex Vesia big time. But look, if the Dodgers don't land a shock name closer, Iglesias might be a safe bet on this market. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. If you're still craving more baseball talk, have the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night be your second listen. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Roki Sasaki was a fantastic reliever for the Dodgers in the postseason, but what should his role be for 2026? We'll talk about it in tomorrow's episode. Travis, it was a fun way to start the week.
Can't wait. The hot stove is hot. And when does spring training start, Harry? Let's get it going.
Right? We need baseball back in our lives. We appreciate you riding with us. Until next time, keep it real. Keep it Dodger Blue.